Ford Motor Company posted its best profit in 13 years during 2011 at $20 billion. Now, how did the company that lost $30 billion from 2006 to 2008 make such a miraculous U-turn? Well, that's the subject of a new book, American icon Alan Mulally and the Fight to Save Ford Motor. And we are blessed to be joined by Bryce Hoffman, the author and well-known reporter for the Detroit News, who wrote the book.
Thank you. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning. And well, you had such inside access, sitting in on meetings. You really never hear of something like that. Why did they let you do it?
Well, you know, what happened was I'd been covering Ford since 2005, and when it was clear that the company had turned the corner, I approached Alan Mulally and Bill Ford and said that I wanted to tell the story, and I thought that I could only really tell it if they let me inside and let me see kind of the untold story of what happened. They knew it had a positive ending, so they were willing to take a risk, but it was still a big gamble on their part.
What was the biggest surprise to you after you finally got inside and you saw the inner workings?
You know, there were several things, but one of the things that just really jumped out, because none of us who were following the industry, and even a lot of industry insiders had no idea about this, was Ford worked during the height of the crisis with its most bitter rivals, Toyota and Honda, to shore up the U.S. supply base and prevent a cascading collapse of suppliers. That's something that we just had no idea was going on.
Right, because if one went down, if we started the domino, it would take everybody down with it.
Exactly. Also, they came a lot closer to bankruptcy than anybody realized. They got down to the point where they stopped watering the plants inside the glass house. They stopped cleaning the windows. They moved people from one floor to another so they could shut off whole floors of buildings to save every penny in order to make it without taking a government bailout.
You talk about Alan Mulally fighting for the soul of manufacturing.
Yeah, that's something that he uses a lot, a phrase. He says, you know, the reason he came here was to fight for the soul of American manufacturing. He'd already, as most of your viewers know, saved Boeing after the September 11 terrorist attacks, and Ford was on the brink. He wanted to save Ford too because he really believes in showing people that American manufacturers can compete with the best in the world and win.
Well, and Bill Ford really parked his ego to bring Alan Mulally in.
It was a difficult decision. You know, the company was really struggling. Bill was wearing 3 hats by the middle of 2006. He was the chairman, the CEO, and the president, and he just wasn't getting through this entrenched corporate culture that was holding Ford back. So the board and Bill had just really frank discussions that I talk about that led to Bill saying very famously inside a board meeting, I have a lot invested in this company, but the one thing I don't have invested in it is my ego. And then he stepped aside and made way for Mulally to come on, which is really, you have to view it as a heroic move on his part.
We're running out of time, but and we also want to talk about your book signing, but do you think they're strong enough to survive now? Yes,
I don't think Ford's fighting for its life anymore. They have challenges, but they're the challenges that every company deals with.
Well, and it'll be fascinating because now you can't cover them anymore because you wrote the book. But you're signing the book this week. You'll be in Allen Park?
Yeah, Allen Park, Barnes & Nobles at 4 p.m. on Saturday.
What is your favorite thing now looking back on having this inside access?
You know, it was just so interesting to see how this company, this American company, pulled itself up by its bootstraps. I mean, it's really an American story. They did it without taking taxpayer bailout, and that's just something, you know, increasingly we don't see anymore, and I think it's a real example for a lot of other businesses.
Well, thank you, Bryce Hoffman, for being nice enough to join us this morning. It is a fascinating read.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay.